Alright, now for this second one, let's say we want to examine the function fx equal to 4 minus 4x minus x squared. Okay, now remember, every quadratic we can factorize, we can sketch the curve, and we can determine the maximum and the minimum by completing the squares. Alright, so over here, what I'm going to do now is, in order to complete the square, to determine whether it's a maximum or a minimum, first thing is, let's rearrange the quadratic equation. So I get negative x squared minus 4x plus 4. Now, notice how it is negative x squared, where the a number is a negative 1. So again, every quadratic, you need to recognize the a value, the b, and the c. For this particular function, the a is negative 1, the b is negative 4, and the c is equal to 4. Okay, you have to know this. Alright, now, to complete the square, since the a is a negative 1, so I will need to put the negative outside the bracket, bracket squared. Usually, we will write a minus behind, but because now the a is a negative, we will need to put a plus. Okay, and x is inside. Alright, now this is 4, we divide by 1, which is still 1, and then we divide by 2, which gives us 2. Okay, so this will be a plus. Now, why is it a plus? Although here's a negative 4, because it's reverse. Why? Because the a is a negative value. So once again, 4 divided by 1, because the a is a 1, gives us 4, divide by 2 gives us 2. Okay, then we square the 2, which gives us 4 times the a number, which is 1, so that becomes 4. Okay, 2 squared is 4 times 1 is 4. Then behind here we have plus 4. Okay, so it becomes negative bracket x plus 2 bracket square plus 8. Alright, now since it is a negative a value, this tells us that we have a maximum point. Now again, you must understand there's a difference between maximum point and maximum value. In the bracket we have x plus 2. That means x number is negative 2. The a number is 8. Okay, that is the maximum point. If the question wants maximum value, that means the maximum value will then just be 8. Alright, okay, so what else can I do? Well, I can also determine the intercept, the x-intercept. Okay, now before that, I can make a rough sketch for this particular curve. So since the x number is negative 2 and y number is 8, which tells me a few useful things. It tells me that the maximum point is on the left hand side of the origin. Okay, what does that mean? Well, let's sketch the x-axis first, followed by the y-axis. Okay, so what do I know? I do know that since the x number here is negative 2, negative 2 should be somewhere here. Okay, this is negative 2. The y number is 8, that means it should be higher up here. So say somewhere here is the number 8. Okay, now since it is a maximum, I know that the graph should be shaped this way. This is the shape of the maximum graph for the quadratic. Alright, and notice that we will need to know the c number. The c number over here is 4. That is the y-intercept. That means it will cut the y-axis at 4. 4 is above the origin, which is on top here. Okay, so now I'm going to sketch the curve and make sure it follows all these requirements. So the graph should look something like this, and it goes back down. Okay, and we know that here this number should be 4. Again, why 4? Because this is the y-intercept. Okay, now notice that we have got one value here on the x-axis which we do not know yet, and we have got one more over here which again we don't know. Okay, we can determine those numbers. Let me just draw the arrow below the x-axis here. Okay, now how do I find those numbers? Again, by factorizing the quadratic function or equation. Okay, but in this case we will again get decimal numbers. Alright, decimal numbers meaning I can not use the calculator, I will need to use the quadratic formula. So once again, back to the quadratic formula, whereby x equals negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac square root over 2a. You must memorize, you must know this formula. Alright, let's put in the a, b and c value. So b number is a negative 4, so minus, use a bracket, negative 4, plus minus b, again bracket, negative 4 square minus 4, a number negative 1, c number is 4, and then square root. Divided by 2, a number is negative 1. Okay, then we draw a straight line. I'm going to use this to draw a line, so it's neater. One long line. Alright, then we continue to simplify this. Negative becomes positive 4, plus minus. This one here in the bracket, in the square root, you can press your calculator. That will give us square root 32 over 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Now we need to simplify. I've spoken about surd form previously. So the number 32 square root is the same as 16 times 2 square root. I can square root 16 to give me 4, but square root 2 will still remain as square root 2. This means I have 4 plus minus 4 square root 2 divided by negative 2. Now, if you do not want to factorize, we can also divide each term with the denominator. So on top here we have got 4 divided by negative 2, and that will give us negative 2. The plus and minus will still remain as plus and minus, simply because positive divided by negative becomes a negative. The negative divided by negative becomes a positive. So there is really no change there. However, the 4 divided by 2 down here gives us 2, and then square root 2. Okay, so again, what does it mean? This means that one x number is negative 2 plus 2 square root 2. Another x number will then be negative 2 minus 2 square root 2. Okay, again, you can use your calculator to determine which number is smaller and which number is larger. This number is smaller and this number is larger. Why do I need to know the smaller and larger? Well, because the larger number will be on the right hand side, which means negative 2 plus 2 square root 2, and the smaller number will be on the left hand side, negative 2 minus 2 square root 2. Okay, so this is a function for fx equal to 4 minus 4x minus x squared. But again, remember, when we are doing this quadratic, sometimes the function would be given a slightly different way. Sometimes the function may not just be 4 minus 4x minus x squared. There are times when you are asked to sketch a modulus function. So remember, the purpose of the modulus is to flip the graph, which means the graph cannot be drawn below the x-axis. Notice here that the parts of the graph that are located below the x-axis is here on the left and here on the right. So we will need to flip these two parts. Okay, when you flip it up, all it means is it becomes like this. Okay, and flip up this part. Okay, and then we have to erase off the bottom part, because no part of the graph should exist below the x-axis. So we remove that, and this is what the graph will look like. Okay, so this is the modulus for 4 minus 4x minus x squared. Okay, now of course we have to examine further properties of the modulus function, but this is the second one just because the a value is a negative. Try and understand how to sketch the graph. Try to understand that the purpose of completing the square is to determine whether we have a maximum or a minimum point, whether we have a maximum or a minimum value. Try to understand how to use the quadratic formula, and you must memorize this formula since it will not be provided in the exam. Okay.